here at Dartmouth College, and I could not be more excited to introduce this workshop called Can TikTok Save the Planet? Communication, Ethical Storytelling, and Building Your Social Media Brand. We have an amazing group of co-sponsors to thank for putting on this event. First, our host institute, the Irving Institute for Energy and Society, the Institute for Black Intellectual and Cultural Life, the Dartmouth Sustainability Office, the Digital Justice Lab, the Department of African and African American Studies, the Department of Film and Media Studies, the Department of Anthropology, and the Department of Geography. Thank you all for giving this great support. Thanks again, Doria and Ariel, for taking time out of your busy schedules to come join us. At the Energy Justice Clinic, we've long been fans of your work and just are so psyched that we get to learn with you all today.
Yay! Okay, I'm going to move it over to Amanda.
I want to add my thanks and appreciation and welcome to Dr. Kelly's comments. Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Graham. I am the academic director here at the Irving Institute for Energy and Society, and we couldn't be more pleased at the Institute to host the Energy Justice Clinic, which has developed into a real force for student engagement and action and learning in the space of how we really do advance a future that is both more sustainable and more just when it comes to our energy and our climate systems. And today's workshop and event is a wonderful example of what the clinic can bring to Dartmouth, to our students, to all of us as we are citizens seeking to enact that better future. And so it's my pleasure to be able to give a little bit more of an introduction to our guests for today. I'm going to actually read their bios because they are really impressive and important, and I want you to be able to hear every little tidbit of them. And then I will be handing the floor over to Doria and Ariel to kick off our activities today. Doria Brown is the energy manager for the City of Nashua. With over 8 years of rich experience in the energy sector, she is a dynamic force in her community. Her expertise lies in energy portfolio management, renewable energy project management, and greenhouse gas accounting. Holding a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science with a focus on chemistry and hydrology from Franklin Pierce University, Doria is deeply committed to the cause of climate change. She advocates for proactive, intergenerational responsibility to address environmental challenges, ensuring a sustainable future. And I'm really delighted to have the expertise in the science space that's bridging across to how do we communicate and act effectively. Apart from her professional role, Doria is an avid creator of short-form video content on her Earth Stewardess platform. This venture, which began amidst the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, reflects her commitment to environmental advocacy. Currently, Doria is an esteemed member of EcoTalk, an innovative virtual community of environmental educators, professionals, and activists, and this collective leverages social media to promote environmental awareness and action. Ariel V. King works at the intersection of environmental justice, climate optimism, culture, and media. As an educator, consultant, and strategist, she is dedicated to helping make environmentalism inclusive, accessible, and irresistible for all. I love that. With a background in environmental racism analysis, civil rights law, and community engagement, Ariel actively supports lobbying and community initiatives, facilitating ongoing dialogues about addressing environmental issues in a more equitable and accessible way. A seasoned lecturer, she shares her expertise on environmental justice policy, media, and storytelling, climate optimism, boy do we need that, yes, and related topics at academic institutions across the U.S. Ariel is also the host of The Joy Report, a podcast dedicated to sharing positive climate stories through the lens of intersectionality and justice, produced by intersectional environmentalists. She has over a decade of experience as an event coordinator and recently oversaw a side event venue and co-organized a Blue Zone Pavilion during COP28 in Dubai. Ariel holds a BA in Environmental and Sustainability Studies, a Master's in Environmental Law and Policy, and a JD focused on civil rights law and environmental justice. She's on the board of directors of Our Climate and Positive Tracks, the advisory board for the Chesapeake Legal Alliance, a member of the Green Leadership Trust, and a proud member of the EcoTalk Collective. So I think that you can see from these brief words that we've got a whole interdisciplinary, intersectional, cultural, and scientific engagement going on here. And boy, that combination, right, of perspectives and disciplines is at the heart, right, I think, of developing solutions that are durable, that are hopeful, and that can captivate all of us on this journey. So thank you again so much for being here, and let me hand things directly over to you all to take it away. Thank you.
No.
It's okay.
That is all. Okay. Do you want to control the
Yeah.
thing, or do you want me to do it?
I got it.
All right, awesome.
Oh, and I just messed it up.
Uh-oh.
So
Yep.
now would it be the arrow button?
Okay.
Hi, I'm Doria Brown, and I promise I don't do that every day when I'm at work. But I currently work as the energy manager for the city of Nashua, and I have a social media platform called The Earth Stewardess, and somehow I haven't been fired yet. So for the city of Nashua, I am the energy manager, and I work on the city's energy portfolio. So I negotiate our natural gas and electricity contracts. Currently, we have a contract at 5.9 cents a kilowatt hour when market rate is 8 cents to 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's a huge deal for the city. We're saving money. I also track our energy usage in our facilities. So if a building is an outlier, for example, our library is using more energy than it's supposed to, I will then hone in on that building to figure out how we can use less energy on that property. I lead energy efficiency measures. So I work with our city departments during construction and renovations to ensure that energy efficiency measures are included in project planning. Now you would think like insulating a building, upgrading the HVAC is something that you would just do, but unfortunately we aren't thinking that way in construction sometimes for city projects because we have a limited amount of funds to kind of figure out how to make a project work. So I make sure that I can change and shift the conversation so that energy efficiency is always a part of that conversation as we move forward with the city's energy goals. I help transition the fleet to reduce emissions. So I evaluate alternative vehicle options when vehicles are due for replacement, and I lead the city's community power efforts. I represent the city of Nashua, bless you, at the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. And here's my highlight reel. So for Community Power, I am a founding member of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, which is a 501c4 that was started way back in 2019, right before COVID. And we created a program where we now can buy and negotiate electricity prices on behalf of our residents. So back in 2022, electricity shot up to 12 cents a kilowatt hour in Eversource territory. And we've been able to drive that price down to 8.1 cents a kilowatt hour for the city of Nashua. And Hanover is also a part of that program. And you pay the same rate for electricity as we do as a default supplier. So we have saved the city of Nashua $3.4 million, and we have put $3.1 million in reserves so that we can further help kind of pad the price of electricity. So when prices go up, we now have this reserve fund to be able to kind of make people feel that less. And as we put more money into that fund, we'll be able to put money towards projects. So if there is a home or something that wants to do an energy efficiency project, we can use money from this budget to be able to give them like a rebate or a grant or a loan to be able to do that project and then help further drive down the benefit from community, or help further drive down the price of electricity and the amount of kilowatt hours we use and create more benefit for community power. For electric vehicles, the city purchased their first EV in 2019. It was a used Nissan Leaf that only went, I think, 74 miles. And I had to drive that vehicle from Massachusetts to New Hampshire.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I almost cried. I had about 10 miles left when I pulled into the parking lot, but it was 100% worth it because now the city has an electric vehicle. And since then, we've purchased 8 more. So we have 2 hybrid electric buses, a few more Nissan Leafs, a Chevy Bolt, and what I'm really excited about is the Ford Lightnings, which can be used to power buildings as well.
Awesome.
So other than that, I've helped develop legislation to help shift our vehicle purchasing process. Now we have to do an analysis on alternative fuel vehicles before we purchase a vehicle off the city's capital expenditure replacement list. So I have also been helping develop the Livable Nashua Sustainability Plan. So this is our first climate action plan from the city. Even though we've done all of these things, we've never put a formal plan in place. So this will help further guide our transition into becoming a more sustainable community. Oh, I did it again. All those people that never
All
learn,
good.
it's me.
Here, Brown, Beacon, and I were invited to attend a Clean Energy Freedom event hosted by Grounded. There, I got to talk about energy issues with the United States Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm. Here's what I had to say.
A lot of my following are very young people who are just starting out their lives and getting their own apartments. So a lot of times when we talk about energy efficiency, we talk about it for homeowners, but there are many solutions for people who are renting. So I think having more information out there for young people who are renters and are looking to decrease their energy bills, especially as they're experiencing the most expensive energy that I think our generation has ever experienced.
So I also have the Earth Stewardess platform on social media. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube Shorts. And it was a COVID baby of sorts. Like some people had children, but I birthed this. And my platform goal is to take complicated topics that I'm an expert on, which is energy, and make them easier to digest. I also talk about sustainable swaps and hobbies because I'm doing those in my everyday life, social justice, and climate solutions outside of the energy realm that I'm super interested in. So I might kind of send people towards a channel that a person might be an expert in that topic as well. There we go. So why create a social media presence? So you can build a network and a community around your social media platform, and that might create unique opportunities with peers and industry leaders and mentors. So my big example of that is the EcoTalk Collective, which I'm a part of. So in 2020, a lot happened in 2020. We were all at home, but stuff was happening. EcoTalk started, and I saw a video fly up on TikTok about a collective of environmentalists that were working together to communicate these really big issues that we're experiencing in a short form video from 5 seconds to 15 seconds. Because back in 2020, that was the sweet spot for content. Now it's a lot longer. They're looking for that minute to minute and a half content block. But EcoTalk started off in that 8 to 15 seconds. And from there, I met a ton of environmental creators that had scientific expertise, communication expertise, and lifestyle branding expertise. And I was able to learn from all these people to create the Earth Stewardess platform and have just a ton of different opportunities. My favorite is where this picture was taken. I went to the Hollywood Climate Summit in 2022 with this group, and we got to make TikTok videos about climate change and how to communicate through film. We got to attend all sorts of talks. We had a one-on-one with Meta and how they can make their platform better when communicating about climate and to stop disinformation about climate change. And it was just a really cool and exciting experience. And I got to do that with a really great group of people. And all right, I've got to take that in because I'm going to start crying. My next piece is personal branding and visibility. Creating a social media platform allows for you to have an image in a space outside of your work. And I think that's really important, especially as we are shifting our jobs a little bit more often than people used to. Some people stay at a job for 2 years instead of like the 6 to 10 years that people used to stay at a job for. And creating this personal brand is kind of like a constant that will stay with you forever. So you have to remember that. Right. But it's a way to be an individual when we're often in spaces that require us to conform to a group. So with my personal branding, I've been able to get a lot of different experiences. In that last video where I met the energy secretary, I was invited there because I was Nashua's energy manager, but they found me because I had a social media platform. So I got to have a one-on-one with the energy secretary. I met the, I think it was the energy minister from Ukraine, and he was talking about all of the issues they were experiencing with the nuclear power plant at the time, and he was trying to draw attention to that. So he helped us get information about that so we could make really good content about it and share it with the public during a really tough time. And it's sad that we had to do that in the first place, but it was a great experience for me besides that, and something that I wouldn't have gotten to do without this personal branding that I've developed through the Earth Stewardess platform. And the last piece is access to opportunities. So here I have Arm & Hammer and an Earth costume. Sometimes I wear an Earth costume. It was one of my best investments. I bought it on Amazon, but I feel like it's done enough good where it might cancel it out. But I was an advisor for Arm & Hammer last year, and we got to talk to them about their strategy towards sustainability, different containers they're using for their products, how they communicate sustainability, and how to not greenwash as a large company where a lot of places were doing things that maybe didn't quite align with environmental things, but they made it seem that way. And I'm not going to call anybody out because of maturity. So that was a really cool experience, and it actually paid for my wedding. So these things can also bring financial incentives. There is a financial benefit to having these platforms and this presence outside of your everyday work, or just if it's research you're doing, presence. And my last experience that I've gotten was I was in Ebony magazine last year for Earth Month as a sustainability power player. And that was really cool. And it brought more attention to the work that I'm doing, where last year I hosted Energy Week for New Hampshire. And that was a great experience for me to learn how to communicate like in real time instead of in 15-second clips. And that was really cool. I did it. So how do you grow a platform and not get fired? So there's a little bit of a fear here on both sides between companies and governments and their employees having their own sort of platform and identity. And some of it is warranted. If you're connected to an organization and you say something a little bit wild, you might get fired. So that's something to always be cognitive of. So I'm actually going to start from the bottom. So read and understand your job's social media policy. Create boundaries between your work life and social media platform. And never let your job find out about your social media from somebody other than you. Mm-hmm. That is one of the biggest tips I can give you. When I started my platform, the first person I talked to was the mayor from the city of Nashua. And I said, hey, Mayor Donchis, I'm working on this platform. Here's some of the type of videos that I'm doing. What do you think? You gonna fire me? And he was super supportive, which isn't always gonna happen, but at least when you have those conversations, you know where you stand in your job. and also what the expectations for you are as an employee, and how that relates to the organization you're a part of. So one thing that I've found to be very successful is creating boundaries between my social media platform and myself. I usually don't go on my platform saying, hey, I'm the energy manager for the city of Nashua, and here's what I think about this corporation that's doing terrible things for the environment. Instead, I'll say, hi, I'm the Earth Stewardess, and here are the terrible things I think about this corporation. So I make sure that there's a divide between my work life and my social media platform, so people can't get it twisted and think that I'm representing my community and saying these things, because we are two different entities. My voice is my voice, and it's not my jobs. So I think that's something to really think about if you want to start a platform. So I'm going to go back to the top. So if you would like to start a platform, one thing that I want to drive here is that follower count isn't as important as you think. Some of the most widely followed accounts might not get the same opportunities that a smaller account is getting. It's about the type of content you're putting out, the quality of content you're putting out, and how it aligns to who you are as a person and the organizations that you might want to work with. So figure out your niche. Be sure that it relates back to your professional work or your goals that you have for that platform. It's really easy to kind of see TikTok trends or Instagram reel trends and just like hop in and do what everybody else is doing and maybe lose sight of your work and your goals. But it's super important to really think about what you're posting and ask yourself, does this align with something that I'm feeling or something that I really would like people to know? And does this align with my goals for this platform? So I think that's super important. And the next thing is to post often. If you would like to kind of garner attention towards a platform, if you post just once a month, you might not get seen as much, especially in the beginning of platform building. So one thing that I hate to say is the best way to build a platform is to post every single day for a period of time. That's a really good way to build something. It's tedious. It's a lot of work. You will be very tired. I posted every single day for almost 3 years, and I was the most tired I ever been in my life at the beginning of 2023. So I took a little bit of a break, a step back after I achieved some of the goals that I had for my platform. But I'm back. I'm posting more often. Follow me. I'm just kidding. And be sure to interact with your pages 2 to 3 times a day in the beginning. So a post, a story, and then maybe another story, maybe another post. Like 3 things a day is a great way to build quickly, especially on Instagram Reels, which in my opinion, as the Earth Stewardess, not as the energy manager of the city of Nashua, Instagram is the platform right now. And be authentically you. So social media is a great way to let your real personality shine. One reason I decided to build a social media platform is from professional fatigue. You can only say like circle back so many times in your career and just repeating the same jargon that everybody is using back and forth. This allowed me to really come into who I am and really show the world that I have a personality outside of my working life. And I think it's pretty cool. You might think different, that's okay. And last, oh wait, I already did that. We're gonna go to the next one, and I'm gonna click the arrow.
Yeah.
There we go. So, how do you balance this work and avoid burnout? So first, I would recommend creating a content calendar. That helped me a lot in the beginning. So there's like a formula to creating content. Like you might have like a meme that you post, and then a video that took you a really long time to make over the weekend that you post in the middle of the week. And then something else, like it's something that people look forward to on a certain day of a week. So, you know, like Taco Tuesdays, have a Taco Tuesday for your account. Like one thing like Social Justice Tuesday or something like that, where you're pointing at something that aligns with your work, but you're doing it on a day of the week. I really need to do something about this side of my house. I didn't know that was gonna pause there. Wow. Anyway, Figure out how much time you can commit to this. So yeah, you have to do a lot of work to start a social media platform, but be a realist about it. If you can only do 3 hours a week, only do 3 hours a week, and make sure that you are leaving time for yourself and leaving time for your work, and keeping that value there. And make sure you're having fun. One part of this is that I have so much fun creating social media content. It's one of the few times I get to be a little less serious in my career and just show who I really am. So if you aren't having fun, you aren't doing it right. So reassess and maybe go back to 1 and 2 and start again. So I am going to hand this over to Ariel. I meant to do that this time, or Ariel, I did it again. And sit down.
All right, thanks.
It's lovely to meet you all.
Okay. Boop, boop, beep, boop. Okie dokie. Hi, everyone. I'm Ariel King. And yeah, I want to talk to you about social media for impact, using your social media to enhance your personal brand and uplift aligned resources, because that's what I've been doing with my social media for the last multiple years. I want to start with just making very clear that social media can be quite literally whatever you want it to be. These are just some of the things that you can do: learn about new topics, create meaningful connections, showcase your projects and passions, establish industry expertise and credibility, share new idea, blah, blah, blah. And then I also added this because, one, I'm a Zillennial, and I remember when that was the Instagram icon. But I think it's also a very clear reminder that these platforms evolve all of the time. So our relationships to these platforms should also be able to evolve. So yeah, they change, we can change too, is what I'm saying here. I think that social media is an incredibly powerful tool for social action, social change, making a difference. Social media over the last few years has created an opportunity to democratize access to information in a way that we have quite literally never seen before. We're no longer exclusively reliant on traditional media sources to receive our news. We have discernment in terms of who we listen to, what we want to hear from, and when we want access to that information. Some of the clearest, most jarring examples over recent history has been what we're seeing in Gaza right now, right? Like seeing firsthand from social media, from journalists, what is happening on the ground and not having to rely on what the news is or is not showing us. I think, social media is providing us with an access point that we quite literally have never received prior. So I think that's really important to note. So I wanted to add Bisan because, we're the same age, and I think about her quite literally every single day. And so, yes, and I think that, it also allows discretion and creates opportunity for connection. About 40% of Americans use TikTok as their primary search engine right now. That's a big deal, right? I think that, I do it all the time. I look for resumes, I look for recipes on TikTok. Like if I see a new ingredient or I have a random ingredient in my fridge, I'm gonna type in whatever that ingredient is, recipe in TikTok, and I'm gonna see how to do something with it, right? And so I think social media is continuing to be a very reliable tool. And so just by a show of hands, how many of us use social media as one of our primary sources of getting news these days? I do, whatever, yeah. And we're not alone. About 30% of Americans use social media for that reason. So yeah, it is just always an incredibly meaningful tool. I also added this post by Green Girl Leah, also known as Leah Thomas, that's her real name. And yeah, this was posted shortly after the death of George Floyd. And I use this as an example to show that social media has helped reimagine what environmentalism can and should look like. It has provided opportunities for more diverse voices to share our own stories and kind of redefine what environmentalism looks like, feels like, and what is considered a part of environmental activism. So as some of you may know, this post went viral in 2020, and it led to a lot of different things, including the formation of Intersectional Environmentalists, which now is like one of the largest environmental justice resource hubs on social media. They have like 300,000 followers right now, and it's always growing. And so, yeah, and I use that just as an example of one, showing how social media can be used to leverage and build up organizations and entities. So I've had the privilege of being able to work with IE on multiple occasions, and I also supported the development of another organization that started as an Instagram page called Black Girl Environmentalists. So yeah, there's just like, it's possible, is what I'm saying. Social media can quite literally be whatever you want it to be. Okay, just a little roadmap. I'm going to do a little bit about me, talk about using social media to build your credibility, growing your network on social media, and then sharing information and cultivating your individual voice. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, about me. So I'm an environmental justice educator and strategist who works at the intersection of art, culture, and climate. So one thing that I'm really excited about, as you heard in my bio, is some of the work that I did in Dubai for COP28. I helped bring to life the first ever entertainment and culture pavilion in the Blue Zone. This was an opportunity for us to really intentionally integrate storytelling, talk about the value of bringing in diverse voices to talk about solutions. And it was just an absolutely incredible experience. So, and one thing I'm very proud of in recent history. So this picture is actually from a talk that I gave at the Entertainment and Culture Pavilion. That blurry photo, blurry person right there is the administrator of the EPA, Michael Regan. I had the opportunity to have a fireside chat and moderate a panel discussion with him and one of my friends, Sage Lanier, who is an incredible environmental educator and has done really, really cool work in the environmental education space. Yeah, I talk to people across the country about environmental justice, environmental racism, climate communications, all of these things. Fun fact, I am a snake mom. I have a 4-year-old ball python, almost 4-year-old ball python. I didn't put her up here because snakes are, you know, a weird subject for some people, and so I don't want to freak anybody out. So it's just pictures of me. In undergrad, I did environmental sustainability studies with a concentration in political ecology. I added that last photo. I actually went to like grad school and law school at Vermont Law School, and so like right down the street. I spent a lot of time here at Dartmouth. I studied here. This is the nearest Starbucks. And so, yeah, I'm very familiar with this campus, and it feels really nice to be back here. While I was at Vermont Law School, I helped co-found the Environmental Justice Law Society, which has led to incredible opportunities, including the formation of the state of Vermont's first environmental justice law. We did community listening sessions across the state, worked alongside multiple people in public office throughout the state of Vermont, and yeah, that later led to the first ever EJ law for the state of Vermont. And so now they are one of less than 10 states in the country that has their own environmental justice law. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah, when I was a student at Vermont Law School, I also was the first Black member of the Board of Trustees. I worked in the Environmental Justice Clinic. I worked as a student ambassador and a bunch of other stuff. Some of my affiliations that you heard, one that I want to highlight because it's so close, like literally around the corner from here. So Positive Tracks is a nonprofit that works with young people from ages 12 to 25 to create social action through physical activity. And so it is a really cool opportunity to connect with young people. They have each young person that works with Positive Tracks is able to create a challenge and pretty much fundraise and raise awareness for any topic they want. Right now, their programmatic focus areas are mental health, LGBTQIA+ rights, and climate change. So lots of opportunities there. And every year on the board, we have 2 spots for fellows from Tuck. And so I'm not sure like who's around. Yes, from Tuck. But yeah, so it's very, very cool, and definitely wanted to give them a shout out because their office is walking distance from here, and that's where I will be for the rest of the day co-working. And yeah, I would say that my social media presence has evolved over the years to mirror different needs or goals that I have in my life. So for a while, it acted as a blog. Almost always I use it to track my achievements and my milestones in my life. And currently, you know, as an environmental justice advocate, I use social media occasionally to advance different things, to share different topics. But lately, I just feel like I'm just a girl and I like to post pretty things, and that's what I've been up to on my social media lately. I've been going to a lot of museums, so lots of museum content lately. But I started my TikTok during my last year of law school in 2021, and it was initially to share book recommendations and like resources and things that I had learned, things that I wasn't able to talk about on a very regular basis at school. I was just feeling very fatigued, very similar to what Doria was explaining, just this idea of creating a separate entity where you can showcase more of who you are, what you're passionate about, and have no one say anything about it. So yeah, that was definitely why I created my TikTok. And I think being more intentional about building community online has led to the most incredible opportunities for me. And I will share a little bit about some of those. So, yeah, as you can see, I've done a lot of things. I've lived a lot of lives. Doria was just saying my life is just a bunch of side quests, and I absolutely agree. But so yes, I think one of the clearest and most recent examples is becoming the host of the Joy Report. So in 2021, I got this DM from one of the founders of Intersectional Environmentalist. And yeah, from what I understood, they had just been following me on social media. They were aware of my work and were like, I think you would be a great person to be the host of our podcast. And so over the course of about a year, we cultivated what the podcast was going to look and feel like. And yeah, we put out 10 episodes in 2022. We took a break last year. It's coming back soon, so stay tuned for that. Available on all platforms for podcasts. Please make sure to subscribe. Yeah, so that's definitely one thing that I've been up to as a result of social media. Another is EcoTalk, which Doria did a beautiful job of explaining just the value and all of the incredible opportunities there. I'm one of the newest members, so I'm not in any of the group photos yet, but it's okay, it's okay. I'd say that I also have had the opportunity to meet incredible friends through social media. Once I graduated from law school, I moved to the DC area, and one of the things that I was able to do is start hosting happy hours and convenings with other Black girls in the climate space, and it was just an opportunity for me to build community in a place that I wasn't familiar with. And all of those connections were made through social media. And yeah, so I was in Vogue last year, but that was a opportunity that I got through Coachtopia, which is Coach's new circular fashion sub-brand. So they are pretty much using the scraps from Coach's production from the last 80 plus years that they've existed as a luxury brand, and they are repurposing a lot of those materials to create new bags and a bunch of other products. And so through social media, I was recruited and found to join the beta community. So before Coachtopia launched in April of last year, I had been helping for almost a year in the development, talking to some of the people who were involved in the merchandising and the craftsmanship and all of this stuff. So it was awesome. And so for the launch, they were looking for models, and I submitted. And yeah, I don't know, when the article came out, I saw my face, and that was very crazy. So yeah, those are just some of the opportunities that I've been able to get through social media. Yes, so I would say before I understood, well, okay, first I think that it's important for us to think about our why when we want to create a more outward-facing social media presence. I think it's very easy for us to think about I want to be an influencer and whatever that means, without understanding that one, that takes a lot of work. There is a lot of exposure that requires, and there's just a lot of things to consider. And so I would say that before I even saw this questionnaire for the first time, this is kind of how I was engaging with social media. And so for those who don't know, Audre Lorde was an exceptional elder, Black radical feminist, prolific writer, incredible icon. Please read her things. But yeah, Sister Outsider, I think, is an interesting place to start. So I would recommend that. But so I just want to briefly think through this questionnaire that she presented as a questionnaire to oneself. But I think it's a great avenue and place to consider what your social media presence and involvement can and should look like. So yeah, what are the words that you don't have yet? or for what do you not have words for yet? Second being, what do you need to say? What do you feel like is not being presented by what you're seeing already online? And then kind of what specific and intentional perspective can you add to conversations that are already existing online? Because we all have individual experiences that can add to the nuance of a conversation, and we all have unique expertise that can either align, that can add new perspectives, all of these different things. The third is, what are the tyrannies you swallow up day by day and attempt to make your own until you will sicken and die of them still in silence? So for me, that has looked like seeing that, well, one, building my TikTok because I didn't see anyone talking about environmental justice resources. I'm like, this is literally all I think about. This is literally all I talk about. And I couldn't imagine continuing to scroll on social media without seeing a representation of who I am and what I'm passionate about. And so that's kind of what that has looked like for me. And then if we have been socialized to respect fear more than our own needs for language and definition, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen to me if I tell this truth? Yeah, so that's that. Yeah, I see a lot of people taking photos. I'll keep it up just for a moment more, just so we can like marinate on that, because I just think that it's just like a really, really important thing to consider when you're thinking about why you want to build your social media platform. And another thing to consider is maybe you already have a personal social media account, maybe you have your own Instagram, and it's been like, you know, just you taking photos, like you're in school, you're just living life, and maybe it might be interesting to explore just creating a whole new profile with a new persona like Earth Stewardess, right? Like in thinking about like how to create more of a separation between you and your professional capacity and you and your creative capacity. So it's really up to you. I haven't done that. Like I said, my social media has ebbed and flowed as I have understood what my needs are and what my wants are. Let's see, where are we? Yeah, and I think that one way to start this, especially while you're in school, is talking about things that you were already like giving presentations on in school, starting to do this with articles or books that you read, adding commentary to those, whether that be in video form, adding it on LinkedIn, and adding your little commentary. You know, there are lots of ways that you can practice the skill of creating content in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming, especially when you're still a student. And I think that there's always a balance that you have to strike on social media between being personable, so people feel connected to you, and remaining professional and having that discernment, recognizing that social media isn't going anywhere, and so these things will live on for far longer than we probably want them to. Yeah, so I think those are just really important things to consider. So yeah, this really ties back to me, to figuring out your why, and yeah, recognizing that you never know who's going to be looking at your account. I'm in the process of applying for some jobs right now. Multiple of them have asked me for links to my social media, right? And so like some are very explicitly saying that or asking for that information, and others are just going to look regardless. And so keeping that in mind, especially as you're thinking about entering the professional world, is always important. Okay, let's talk about LinkedIn. So Linda Rowley, who is a business, sales, and marketing guru, talks about the fact that LinkedIn is no longer an online resume. It is your digital reputation, which is a crazy concept to think about, but I think it's very true. LinkedIn helps build credibility. You can showcase your skills, your accomplishments, your education, your recommendations, and you can also use that as a way that can be a blog for you, right? Especially now, there are all these features to do articles on LinkedIn and all of this stuff. And I used it a lot to build up my professional network while I was in school. My last year of law school was completely online thanks to COVID. And so I didn't have the opportunity to go to networking events to build up that professional network and try to look for jobs in person. And so I relied very heavily on LinkedIn. And so I have some tips, some suggestions on methods to do that. One, just cold message some people. And I have created a little template of the cold messaging that I have used in the past. I would say that it has about a 70% return. Like most people will reply because people love talking about themselves, right? So if you make it very clear that you have done a little bit of research on this person, you've looked at their profile, you've maybe gone off of their profile, looked on their like company's website to read their actual bio, and yeah, it feels really aligned, reach out and let them know that, and use that as an opportunity to ask for a conversation so that you can learn more about their career path. It doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, I'm looking for a job. It can just be like, I just want to learn more. Like, what you're up to seems really dope. Like, show me, tell me, explain to me what your path has looked like. So after your call, some of the things that you should be doing, 112%. One, before you end the call, you should be asking them if there is 1 to 2 other people that they think you would connect with, or that they think would be beneficial for you to connect with based on the conversation that you had with them. Second, after the call, please send a follow-up email with a thank you, and make sure to add your resume to that email. Add them to your network directory spreadsheet. I feel like this is something I absolutely did not do in school, and so I'm now telling everyone to start doing this. If you haven't started one already for networking while you're in school, please, this is your sign to start it right now. So some of the things that I think should be included in that, obviously the name of the person, the company that they're a part of, their contact information, how you met them, because that's always important to reference later, and the last date of contact with them with a brief description. So yeah, like making this a very clear Excel sheet, and then I always add like a tab for like other notes as needed. But keeping this all in one place is going to be a game changer for you, especially as you're thinking about jobs, thinking about just building that professional network. Because having all of these people and all these connections on LinkedIn is one thing, but being able to use them and have them be like actual meaningful connections that you can look to later, it truly just makes an absolute world of difference. Let's see if this is gonna, okay.
PR firm that created the term carbon footprint.
It's like a lag, please.
As a way to blame us for the fossil fuel industry's since the early 19th.
Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry. It's like it's just not aligned with the words, and it's pissing me off. So anyway, one of the main things I do is create environmental content. And some of the main things that I think are important for doing so, if this is something that you're interested in doing, but I think for any other type of content where you're sharing information and sharing education, is to do your research beforehand, make sure that you're citing your sources. So when you're doing like a Canva, like a carousel on Instagram, one thing that I've noticed and that I love seeing is that like have the last slide be all the sources, all the places where you got this information from, so that people can refer to that later. When I'm doing content, like when I'm doing video content, I usually will just like add the source underneath whatever the piece of content is that I'm using or that I'm citing. Yeah, I think that's always important. And for educational content, I always think it's important to have a call to action at the end. Sure, education's nice, but what do people do with that information? Figuring out ways to be very intentional about driving action, driving change in one way or another, I think is just important, even if it's something as simple as go read the rest of this article that I got this information from. But yeah, for most of my environmental content ends in like a call to action to sign a petition, to learn more, to read about something else, to follow a certain creator, just figuring out a clear way to connect people to more information, more access, more resources is, I think, important when you're developing and creating educational content online. Another is always just to be respectful. So I primarily do environmental justice content, and in doing that, these are people's lives that we were talking about. You know, we are talking about individuals who are impacted by environmental burdens, who are being forgotten by politics, who are just not trusting of politicians because of this history and all of these things, and are experiencing the most severe burdens of environmental harm and of the climate crisis. I think that it might be easy and it's probably the lazy way to go about this, is to really just only think of these as case studies and not think of these as people who are experiencing these things firsthand. And I think as people who are sharing information about climate change, about climate justice, about environmental justice, it is important to, one, humanize people's experiences, validate the lived experience of people who are like dealing with these things, and to just be as respectful as possible, honestly. I think that's really just the priority. The other thing is to just be yourself. I don't find myself very funny, and so I'm never gonna try to do like a skit, you know, like, and so, you know, so I think that it's important to just know yourself, but also be open to like trying new things, because maybe you might surprise yourself and maybe you're actually really good at skits, I don't know. But yes, this video that I tried to show is an example of the campaigns that I have worked with big nonprofits and organizations to do to dispel myths on climate change, to talk about environmental justice, to gain signatures for different projects and initiatives. I've done content on Line 3, one of the pipelines, one of the many pipelines, on the Willow Project, on the LNG proposal, on Cancer Alley. This one was about the state of California suing a bunch of big oil companies in an attempt to hold them accountable to all of the things, all of the destruction that they have caused, and the knowledge that they've had that their actions would cause all of this destruction, the knowledge that they've had for decades. And yeah, I don't know, I could do a whole presentation on just that, but I won't. Yeah, so I just think in general, it's really about being true to yourself, understanding what these needs are, what you want to connect with, and how you want to use your social media. And so, yeah, so I have just like a few tips to consider for growth. I think Doria did a beautiful job at explaining some of the like very clear, tangible examples of ways that you can build very steady growth. I do not have the time for that, and you know, and so that's just not. And that also just hasn't been a priority in the content that I create. So I would just recommend to stay consistent in whatever way feels comfortable for you. If you're not necessarily prioritizing growth, I've seen you know, people suggest that people, like accounts under 10,000 only need to post like twice a week on Instagram, like grid posts, but like you should be posting like stories every day. Like, you know, I don't know, there's all the different things. However, it's important to note the algorithm changes all the freaking time. And so there's really no clear formula on how to grow. So the priority should always be just staying consistent, remembering your why, and yeah, just like having fun in the process. I think it's also important to note that you do not need fancy tools, especially to start your content creation journey. In preparation for this call, we were talking to Sarah about like, you know, if we wanted to help with creating content for y'all. She's like, yeah, like we can buy all this equipment for them. And we were like, no, there's actually no need for that. You know, good lighting is a priority. So, you know, like, you know, so like, of course, like if you don't have good lighting in your space immediately, then maybe just use a desk lamp, or use like go to a window and use the natural lighting, you know, just like get creative. Y'all are students, you know the vibes. And then just another thing for accessibility purposes, add captions to your videos. And not only for accessibility, but the study has shown that approximately 80% of users of social media scroll without sound. So if you are not adding captions to your videos, you're missing out on engagement, reach, connections, all of those things. And then, yeah, just CapCut and Canva have made my life incredibly easier. Yeah, Canva has a bunch of resources and tools for creating graphics. CapCut is great for video editing. For your captions, some of the platforms, they prefer if you're doing your editing inside of the actual app, and they will like push it out to more people if that's the case. So something that I do sometimes is create the whole video on CapCut and then add the captions in app, because all of them have like a caption feature to just like try to integrate some of that need and like do some of that editing internally and then post it. Yeah, and then finally, have fun. Yeah. That is all. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, so I think now we have time for some questions. Doria, if you want to come up. Yeah, I would say, one, make sure you're following me, make sure you're following Doria, make sure you're following EcoTalk. And yeah, this is just me at the Climate March in New York City in September. And, you know, Snooze just won a Grammy, so I felt like it was very appropriate for me to show that I use this reference for it. Anyway, yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you. Questions? Thoughts, reflections. It doesn't just have to be questions. It's for the live stream. Keep it. Yep.
Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Ali. I'm a first year MBA student. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm curious to know, like, you've done really cool work in Nashua. How do you kind of scale that to like a bigger city? That, yeah.
So I 100% believe that climate change isn't a cookie cutter solution.
Okay.
So I don't know how I would scale something to a bigger city and compare it to Nashua, because Nashua has very specific needs, and a bigger city would have very specific needs as well. So I think the bases are there where energy efficiency has to happen, renewable energy needs to be worked into city planning, community needs to be taken into account. We need to expand the ability to commute on public transit and all of that. But the way you get there would be very different in a big city versus a little city. And unfortunately, I've never worked in a big city. So my expertise is very much in that Nashua size environment.
For sure.
Other thoughts, other questions, reflections?
Hi, thank you so much, both of you, for sharing. So I'm helping the Energy Justice Clinic with some of the social media efforts, and I was really curious, you mentioned that the social media landscape has been changing a lot in the past 3 years. Like, for example, with the videos, the sweet spot used to be from 8 to 15 seconds, and now it's from like a minute to a minute and a half.
Yeah.
What are some of the other ways that social media is changing, and like how can we kind of step into that role and fill that gap?
That's a great question. Do you want to start?
Have you ever seen the Shop Now button?
Oh yes, TikTok Shop.
That is one way that social media is changing. It's not my favorite way it's been changing.
Yeah.
But now people are shopping in-app on TikTok and Instagram. More on TikTok now than Instagram, even though they started this monster. But I believe they're starting to create buttons like Donate Now. So they're trying to offset their kind of culture of excess with these Donate Now buttons. So I think being able to utilize that, if there's a nonprofit you're promoting or something like that, they'll push that content a little bit more if you have that button there.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think there's a continual ebb and flow of like photo versus video content. I think, you know, when TikTok first started, it was primarily a video app, and you could still like operate on Instagram primarily posting photos. It's almost completely the inverse now, recognizing that, yeah, like posting photos on TikTok with like, and almost using graphics in that way gets pushed out better by the algorithm then, and then Instagram Reels are an incredible way to grow your reach. So yeah, I mean, I think that's another example for sure. Yeah, totally.
Honestly, to add to that, it's like fashion. If you really like a certain style, it's going to come back in fashion.
Yes.
So if you really like to make a certain type of content, just wait. You're going to have a few bad months, but trust me, it's going to come back and into the algorithm eventually.
Yeah. 100%.
I have a question
Yeah.
as well. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. This has been really awesome. And I'm just wondering, kind of on the personal level, I know, Doria, you were saying that, you know, there was a time where for 3 years you basically did a post a day. I don't know how much you want to share, totally whatever you're comfortable with, but I'm really interested in the personal side. How does this, you know, influence your mental health? Is it, you know, sometimes I can imagine it's empowering, and sometimes I can imagine, you know, it can be a little exhausting. So I would love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So those 3 years weren't normal years. So it was from 2020 to 2023, which COVID was a big part of that. So making TikToks was kind of my lifeline at the time, where I could do something interesting that had an impact from the comfort of my home, which I was stuck in, along with everybody else who was also stuck at home. With the only thing they had to absorb was like Netflix shows, Tiger King, and then social media content. So it was a lifeline for me, but as things started to shift to be more in person, I was at my job almost every day of the week. I was seeing friends, planning a wedding and all of that. I had to prioritize. So I chose to prioritize my work life and my relationships over the content I was making, because I believed that I achieved the goals that I wanted to achieve, and it was time for that shift. So I think there's a very much a balance that people should be cognizant of when creating social media content. If that is your primary goal, that's okay, but also if you're trying to do all those other things at the same time, something has to give.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like I go through stages where I just have absolutely no interest in being perceived online. And I just like don't post. I don't show my face, right? And I think that giving yourself a lot of grace in that is important. And I think as environmental creators, there are often opportunities where your videos end up on the wrong side of socials. And you are bombarded with people who don't believe in climate change, who are just actively being like unnecessarily aggressive and anti. And I have experienced that quite a few times, and you have as well. I think recognizing that, one, they would never say that to my face, right? And I think like knowing that like social media is a way for a lot of people to embolden themselves in ways that they certainly would not ever do otherwise, and like really internalizing that part and just being like, it feels very cowardly for you to sit on the internet and be crazy at me, right? Like, what is that helping? And so, I don't know, that's a thing that I have worked on building a mindset about, because yeah, like people are just miserable and like they're just gonna use any opportunity to like tear down a person. And so like really just not taking that personally, giving yourself breaks as needed whenever it feels comfortable, but also recognizing that there is, for the negative comments that you receive, there's almost always going to be like 10 times the amount of positive ones, and really just understanding that you're not ever gonna please everyone. And part of growing a platform is building a community and knowing that the community is going to prioritize what you are willing to share, and really like leaning into that.
I want to piggyback off of that a little bit. See, I just used corporate jargon, right? Doesn't it just ingrains itself. I can't stop, won't stop. So to piggyback off of that, when I first became popular on social media, it wasn't for climate stuff, it was for social justice stuff. The George Floyd, Black Lives Matter was really a thing. And I saw a niche that a lot of people didn't see, and I had a series called Hey White Allies, and it was one of like the most trying 4 months of my life, where I created content that helped people understand how they could be a helpful ally without centering themselves. So my content ended up on the wrong side of TikTok a lot. I used to have my husband in my content with me. He's white, and we received death threats, all sorts of stuff. So my husband isn't in my content anymore. I don't make the White Ally series anymore for myself, and it's okay to shift to protect your mental health and your physical well-being. Unfortunately, the world's not going to get that content anymore, and I'm sorry, but it's okay to stop for yourself.
Totally.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
One last question.
No apologies.
If you're excited about creating and being a content creator, but you're not sure about like the type of content just yet that you want to create, and there's things you could do, but you're not very excited about that kind of stuff, like how did you, I guess, find your voice or find your lane that you were really excited about and kind of launch off from there?
I think for me, I think I'm still trying to figure out like what exactly I want to continue posting online. So for me, I think above all else, it's always going to be what I'm interested in. And so like maybe that is going to hinder my growth at some point. I don't care. I really like if I am going to be producing content for no money for random strangers on the internet, I'm going to make sure that it's things that I care about. And that's really that for me. And I think it's also important to just really, and I think also the algorithm will tell you sometimes. So like the first time that I posted a book recommendation on my TikTok, it was not my first TikTok. The first time I did that, just so many people were just like, oh my gosh, like thank you so much. And so I was just like, oh, okay, like I guess I can keep talking about this. And like I love talking about books. I love giving book recommendations. So maybe that's something I'll continue doing. And I think there's also just like a formula that people have shared of just like understanding that you might have a niche or like a specific thing that people will come to your page for because you have established expertise in that field. But then there should also be things that create a relatability aspect. So maybe that is like using trends or like doing like shorter form content or just like a random thought that pops in your head that you want to just like share online because it's a part of the human experience instead of like within your particular niche. So yeah, just like really doing what feels right, honestly. Yeah.
To circle back to me, sorry, I can't stop it. So I have different eras. I was doing eras before Taylor Swift.
Please, yes.
So I shift based on what I'm interested in and what makes me excited about creating content. So I love hydroponics. I went through a whole hydroponics like 6 months where I have these crazy gardens inside my house where I'm growing peppers, spinach, tomatoes, lettuce. At one point, I had so much plants growing inside my house where we could have salads every day of the week. So I was making content about that because I wanted to shift from social justice, a shift from climate, and relating my stuff back to my work. It was just like a really fun time. And I received opportunities from that. I think it's just about knowing when to shift and when you're not having fun anymore, and then finding out what that next era is going to be.
Totally. Yeah. How are we doing on time, by the way? Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you so much again. I guess a question I have is like how, like if you've ever felt like that you get like caught in like the social media like doom scroll or like social media is like a lot of information all the time and like just like how like if you have any tips on just like processing all of that information and just like how to get out of the doom scroll.
I think I'm still trying to figure that out. I feel like I think it's a constant process. I think just perhaps like limiting screen time in general or like trying to balance it with, for me, it's like balancing it with reading. I'm like, okay, if I do like an hour and a half of scrolling mindlessly, I'm gonna like spend an hour and a half outside or like, read out, whatever. Find something else to do for that equivalent amount of time. I think it varies. And I think our brains are quite literally not meant to process as much information as we are receiving on social media, period. So I think knowing that, being discerning, and then I don't know what to do after that, but just like being aware of that, I think is definitely a step ahead of what most people are up to on socials. Do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I break out of the algorithm all the time. I utilize my search bar. So if I'm seeing a ton of content that I don't want to see, like yesterday, I was seeing nonstop negative things about Taylor Swift and the Grammys, just like nonstop. I was like, come on, give me something I want to see. So my search bar usual when I want to break out of what the algorithm is giving to me is I look up Black excellence in the search bar and I just absorb every single video that pops up about Black excellence.
I love that.
I just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then I put my phone down, and then usually the next time I pick it up and I look at my For You page, I'm getting a ton of like positive Black creators, and then it might shift me to something negative again, but I fight my algorithm. Yeah.
Yeah, That's big. I love that. And it's really also just depending on what you engage with, right? So like if you, like you have to engage with the type of content that you want to keep receiving. So yeah, that's totally
Also,
right.
searching Black excellence in the search bar is a great way to get some great content. I'm just saying.
I love that. Amazing. I think we have time for one more question then. Or not. That's okay. Yeah, okay. Yes.
If you were to start your profile over, your social media journey over again, what would be like anything you would do differently, or the wisdom you would impart, like the first thing you would tell yourself or someone else?
Honestly, I think most of the tips that Doria shared are like the best ways to go about it. Like posting consistently, figuring out a content plan for yourself, and blocking off time in a week or in a day where you are prioritizing content development, whether that be like an hour and a half on one day where you're just doing research, and then like the next day you're working on like developing your scripts, and then another day you're doing like a whole batch of recording. Just like finding a strategy that works for you and being very consistent with it is probably the best way to go about it for starting.
For me, I had a peak where I was just, for a little while, it felt like I was everywhere on social media. Really famous people started following me. Now I'm gonna say something for clout, but like Kristen Bell followed me. I almost fainted. She DM'd me, we had a whole conversation. She sent me a pair of shoes, all these things, and she said, Doria, like if you ever need anything, like if you wanna start anything, let me know. And I didn't pursue that. So I would pursue every single opportunity that comes to you. At least think about it. Don't write anything off. Don't ever think that what you're doing isn't valuable. For a while when I started social media, I was like, oh yeah, it's just a dumb thing that I do, LOL. But I would have taken it more seriously earlier.
That's a great point. Totally. Feels like a really good ending point. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for listening. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Thank you so much again.
Thank
I was going
you.
to share a little announcement. But yeah, that was really wonderful. We really appreciate you coming here and speaking so openly with us. It's been really awesome. Okay, so this is just a little graphic I made on Canva, actually, little shout out. But if you're interested in sharing a post, making a post for the Energy Justice Clinic, maybe you don't have your own site yet, we would absolutely love to help share your work. You can do it either anonymously or you can totally be cited if you would like. Just let us know what you're comfortable with. We post all the time, and right now I am in charge of running the Instagram with Dr. Sarah Kelly, so you can email either of us, whatever you're more comfortable with. Again, let us know if you want your name to be shared or not, but really anything you're interested about, whether it's environmentalism, energy justice, or more of, like a social impact piece, we would love, love, love to share it and see what you guys come up with, especially using the skills that we learned from these beautiful women today. So that being said, please take a picture, write down these emails if you are interested, and then I'm going to hand it over to Angus for some closing remarks.
Hi everyone, my name is Angus. I'm the Experiential Learning Coordinator here for the Irving Institute. I just want to do another round of applause for our speakers today and just say a huge thank you for coming in today and sharing with everyone here. The learning from today doesn't end with this session. We have a live stream that will be available online for everyone to review if you want to ever check back in with this content today. Right after this session, in about 15 minutes, on the third floor of this building in room 375, we'll be doing a coffee hour with, are both of y'all going to be there? Mm-hmm. Great, just continue these conversations and discussion from today. And we'll be doing a second event in this series on April 18th. I don't know if we have a time confirmed for that yet, but check your emails for that. More to come on that in the near future. Thank you all again so much, and I think we're calling it there. Amazing. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your days.
Hell yeah.
Yay.
Nice.